Thanks very much, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Planning and Control meeting. Before we go any further, can I just ask everyone who's attending just to either switch their mobiles off or put them on silent. And before we go to the agenda, I would just like to ask Stephen Mason to give us a roll call. So if you can all give your name, rank and number.
Chair, thank you. If I just go through the members of the committee present this evening, then we have Councillors Anderson, Bettany, Kerr, Carr, Hassel. I don't think Councillor Nawaz has now joined us. We have Councillor Nawaz with us, Councillor Mcchrystal, Pierce, Paul Pegg, West, and yourself, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe propose that any officers introduce themselves when they first speak.
Yes, that's a sensible approach. Thank you very much. Right, if we can just go on to the agenda now. Are there any apologies? I don't have any. Does anybody else have any apologies from someone?
I don't have any, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Late items to be introduced by me. Well, there isn't any late items actually, but I'm sure most of you will read what happened with the application on London Road regarding Councillor Graves was going to come and speak to us. Right? My own view is that any councillor, whether it's me or anybody from any other ward, if we write to the committees asking to bring a application to this meeting, then I think we should attend. And in the instance that we can't, perhaps ask our fellow ward councillor to attend rather than just to write a letter, because at the end of the day, the letter doesn't suggest any other thing other than what the officers are reporting to us. So if we can be mindful of that in future, if anybody asks for an application to be brought to, make sure that either they attend themselves or ask one of their colleagues to attend. Okay, moving on to number 3, declarations of interest. Anybody have any? No? Minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of October.
Move, Chair.
Move, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Minutes of the Conservation Area Advisory Committee held on 3rd of September 2020.
Noted.
Thank you. Number 6, appeals decision. I think appeals and performance, Middleton House. Paul Clark's going to give us an update on all of these. Paul, if you would.
Thank you, Chair. Paul Clark, Chief Planning Officer. I'll try and run through these and give you a suitable break in between each one. County Hotel Sinfin. This development proposed the demolition of the public house. Members may recall it was to allow the construction of a garage, workshop and car wash. Committee refused the application on design, impact on local centre and the absence of a retail leisure function on the site. Therefore, they felt it would adversely affect the vitality and viability of the neighbourhood centre. The inspector appointed to do the appeal noted the industrial nature of the immediate neighbours and felt the proposal would not be out of keeping with the existing and established commercial character to the west of Sinfin Lane. He considered that the proposal would not result in a proliferation of such uses in the area, noting that with another one proposed, it indicated actually there was a demand for such uses in the area. In granting planning permission, interestingly, condition 14 is of note. It requires details of electric charging points to be provided. So this is an emerging condition which from the inspectorate, which also it was used in an appeal for a HIMO recently that Councillor Pegg will be familiar with, and we'll report that back to you in January. Back to the County Hotel momentarily. There is also permission for a change of use of the hotel to 5 apartments, so and an MOT testing station. So either permission can be pursued. They got the permission through the normal route, and they have this appeal approval. That's the County Hotel. The next one was one that, James, if you can put up the slide for this dwelling house at the side of 171 Western Road. We refused this application under delegated powers. The proposal was refused on 3 grounds, and the inspector, in dismissing the appeal, considered there were 3 main issues. Can you go to the next slide, James? Highway safety. This is on the corner plot, and he agreed that the awkward parking arrangements and the cramped front area close to an Arundel Drive junction would be harmful to highway safety. Cars, he felt, would be either backing out there, which is really not a good idea, or nudging out forwards because they're so close to the junction that they would be harmful in highway safety. He also felt, is there another slide, James? Thank you. He also felt that the character and appearance, it was out of keeping, and he felt it would be a prominent building on the corner, dominating the street scene, and we felt would be a discordant feature, overbearing amongst the existing built form. He equally felt that the living conditions for adjoining occupiers would be unduly affected. The domineering structure, he felt, in relation to 171 adjacent, I think that's the property in the blue, would be overlooked. His private garden area would be overlooked, resulting in direct overlooking from window to window and of garden space. We felt this is a welcome appeal, indicating that our tolerances in relation to infill development is set at the correct level. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, James. The next item, I think, Chair, that you introduced for me was the performance. This is our development control performance Q2, which is July to September. Now, not surprisingly, the determination of application numbers is down on the previous quarter, as home working and balancing childcare, given the COVID restrictions, have taken a hold. Equally, you throw into the mix that it was over the summer when holidays were or could be taken. But we actually determined more applications. If you look at the stats, it just took us a little bit longer to do them. I must say that the team, from validation officers through to case officers, and then Ian and Sarah dispatching the work, have shown a tremendous strength, resilience and dedication, adopting and keeping going. I must say, I know you as a committee always commend the work that's done, but I'm really proud to work with them and know you continually express your support, none more so than now. That's the performance side of it, Chair. I don't know if members want to raise.
Can I say something?
You're on mute, Chair.
Sorry, I've muted myself. Then I was going to say we're very grateful for the work that you do, and as always, you're way ahead of expectations. And I think as chair, and I'm sure everybody else on this committee, we're like to applaud your achievements, and long may it continue. But you see, ever since I've been on the committee for the last 17, 18 years or so, right? Our office has always achieved a higher figure than national statistics say so. So well done. Congratulations to you from all of us.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, would you mind if I just made a comment on the appeal decisions, please?
No, Joanna, carry on.
Thank you. I just wanted to log, I have mentioned it in previous meetings with Paul Clark. I just wanted to log my disappointment that the appeal decision for the county hotel referred to the lack of car washing facilities nearby as one of the reasons for letting the appeal go through, when there is a car wash facility immediately around the corner from the site. I just wanted that noted. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, it is somewhat surprising when you consider now that there's a car wash almost on every corner there. I don't know how they came by that reason, but here we are with it. But there's certainly plenty of hand car washes all over the place. Never mind. Carry on, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. On to the Middleton House item on your agenda. Now, this report is before you to revise the package of Section 106 contributions. It would see an increase of an initial contribution and would allow the development to proceed, providing 53 residential units in the city centre. As approved, through the Section 106, we would have got £49,000 with a possible further £187,000 at the end of the development if profits were to increase, and that would be reviewed as an overage. But there's no guarantee of getting that money in. Now, to de-risk the scheme and to secure their investment, the developer has increased the upfront contribution to £99,000. But in doing so would seek to remove the overage if profits were made. Under the current economic climate, the developer believes that the scheme is much more higher risk than it was when he got his approval. Now, removing the overage gives them more comfort on the actual costs of the build of the development, where they feel the market for apartments is so much smaller. Under the current circumstances of COVID and generally the general uncertainty around development, apartments and city centre living, taking the £99,000 now would help bring forward city centre living, because he has committed to us that he will go forward and build on this site with its associated footfall. And spending would bring confidence into that part of the city and into the city centre, and of course to city retailing. And it equally, as members should recall on the detail, it brings back a Grade 2 listed building back into beneficial use. So my recommendation, Chair, is that we accept the developer's offer, take it and wish him good speed in getting this scheme out to the ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Members of the committee, any thoughts? Are we happy to go?
Please, I asked, please, Chair, before we go on.
Yes, Lucy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually quite surprised that their logic is that we would prefer to pay lots of money than to potentially pay no money extra at all. And I can't see the logic in that. Paragraph 4.4 in the report does give me a bit of concern, but it's not a planning concern. The developers are concerned that due to the way they are proposing to sell the units, the assessment at the end will be confusing and difficult to agree. It just makes me worried about how they are dealing with their accounting processes, that they wouldn't know at the end what they've spent and what they've earned. But that's not a planning issue. And I think that given the uncertainty, it's actually something that I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Lucy. Anybody else, or are we happy to go along with Paul's recommendation?
Councillor Mcchrystal's indicated, Chair, and then I'd like to speak as well, please.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't looking there. Yes, Councillor Mcchrystal.
Thank you, Councillor West, and thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I'd agree. Let's get on with this. It's been dragging on for a long, long time. We're desperately in need of developments in the city centre. Middleton House is going to be an absolute asset for the Cathedral Quarter. The terms are what they are. We are on settled times, and any delay to this project I'd be absolutely against. So the faster we can get on with things, then the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Joanna?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, absolutely agree with Councillor Mcchrystal. I think it would be great to get potentially more money later on, but it'd be also great to get money now and get a commitment from the developers to start doing some work. As Ross has just said, we need this in the city centre. So yeah, absolutely happy to support.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we need to take a vote on this? Actually, I'm not sure.
Yes, Chair, I think you need to take a vote. Whether you want to just, you can either go through the normal process of asking each councillor, or we can take it as read that all councillors have approved it, unless they wish to speak up now. Would that be the easiest way of dealing with it?
Yes, okay. Unless there's anybody who's against this, can we just take it as Stephen's just said? I think there's nobody against it, Stephen. We can accept it.
That's accepted as approved unanimously then, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Certainly NEMCOM.
Sorry?
It may not be unanimous for, but there is nobody against.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy, for the observation there. Right, okay. Is that it, Paul, from you?
It is indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, right. Moving on to item 9, which is applications to be considered tonight. Excuse me. The first one, pages 1 to 12, is land at the side of 9 Vicarwood Avenue, Darley Abbey. Now, unless I'm mistaken, I believe, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure one of the officers, which is, I think Sarah's presented, will correct me. We are sort of looking at the entrance to this particular plot and not the actual dwelling itself. Am I right in that, Sarah?
Yes, I can clarify that. It is it's outlined with means of access. This is Sarah Claxton, I'm Development Control Team Leader. In terms of housekeeping, we do have a few updates for members. Already circulated, you've had a further objection received from a local resident, number 7, who raised some concerns about previous applications, which should be material considerations, that the report doesn't thoroughly consider local vernacular, the previous refusal, the small size of the plot, the higher position of the plot, and adverse impacts on amenities of neighbouring residents, and the amendments to provision to form 3 parking spaces. There's also an additional objection which has been received online, so wasn't included in the report, from the occupant of number 9 Vicarwood Avenue, who raises concerns about potential design, layout of the new dwelling and impact on their amenities. Now, number 9 has recently been sold to a new owner, so it's the new owner of number 9 who has raised some concerns online. I've also had a letter of support from the agent, that's already been circulated, which sets out the context of the application and confirms that it seeks permission in principle only, with design and layout to be approved at a later date. In terms of the main body of the report, this application is for development of a single dwelling on land to the side of 9 Vicarwood Avenue in Darley Abbey. It's been submitted in outline, with only means of access being considered at this stage. As a result, it seeks planning permission for the principle of siting a single dwelling on the application site and the access to serve the development. An indicative site plan has been provided with the application, which is shown on your screen, and this shows the possible footprint of a dwelling on the site. However, this layout is not being determined as part of this outline submission, and the precise details of layout, scale, external appearance and landscaping are all considered under subsequent reserved matters applications. 2 previous applications have been submitted for residential development on the site, and both were full applications for a single dwelling. One was withdrawn, the other was refused permission due to concerns about the design, scale of the dwelling and the car parking dominated frontage. For the current application, we are not considering these detailed matters and only considering the principle of residential development and the proposed location of the access. The proposed means of access has been amended during the life of this application, since the existing dwelling at number 9 has been sold and is now in separate ownership. Shared access was originally proposed, but the amended plan now shows a separate dropped curb access to be formed to the plot from Vicarwood Avenue, as shown on the plan. Highways Office has not raised any objections to the proposed access on highway safety grounds, subject to conditions related to construction and surfacing, which are in the conditions in the report. There have been 20 third-party objections, including one from Councillor Repton, have been received to the application. They raise concerns about overdevelopment of the site, loss of amenity for neighbouring properties, loss of vegetation and car parking dominated frontage. We have carefully assessed the outline proposal, having regard for the previous refusal and indicative site plans which the agent has submitted, and we are satisfied that the refusal reasons can be addressed through reserved matters submissions. The plot is large enough to deliver a single dwelling, which respects the character of the local area and safeguards the amenities of nearby residents. It's also been shown that the front of the plot can achieve appropriate car parking and landscape planting to soften its visual appearance in the street scene. So in principle, it is considered that the site can accommodate one dwelling without causing undue harm to the character of the area and the amenity of neighbouring residents, and without an unacceptable impact on the local highway network. Details of appearance, layout, scale and landscaping would need to be carefully addressed at reserved matters stage, although based on the indicative details provided, it is considered the proposal overall accords with the intentions of relevant local plan policies as well as overarching MPPF. So it's recommended for approval subject to the recommended conditions. And I think you have Councillor Repton to speak. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Actually, I've misplaced my list of speakers, so on each application you'll have to remind me who's speaking, but I gather this one's is Councillor Repton. So, Martin, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. You'll have seen the number of objections to this particular application, and I support all those concerns that residents in the area have raised. We've already heard that one previous planning application was withdrawn, one was refused, and let's focus on that one that was refused. That's application 19-00703 FUL, and it was refused for its effects on the street scene, resulting in a frontage dominated by car parking. Now, this is exactly the same reasons that local people are objecting again, and surely this committee can't be so inconsistent as not to similarly follow what you did previously, and you refused it because the actual frontage and the car parking was not acceptable to the street scene and being dominated by that car parking. And so I would really urge all committee members to be consistent and again refuse it on the grounds that you refused it previously. Nothing's changed. This site, as already been said, is really small. The photographs actually are just like estate agents' photographs. They make it look bigger than it is. It's a tiny frontage next to a 1930s semi, and they're talking about refusing that little bit of hedge so you can get 2 cars in. Completely unacceptable to the area, completely wrong for this particular area. And again, because of I urge you to reject it on the grounds that you previously rejected it on, because otherwise there's a major consistency, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to do that. So, Chair, I would urge every member to do what you did last time, and you did the right thing last time. You refused it because that the frontage will be dominated by car parking, and this is exactly the same. Nothing's changed whatsoever, and I would urge that your decision doesn't change as well. So please refuse it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Repton. Sarah, did you want to add anything on to what Councillor Repton just said about nothing's changed?
Yeah, I just want to, if James can show the indicative site plan again, which has been submitted. This is the amended site plan that was submitted by the agent to try and respond to some of the concerns, and because the neighbouring plot was sold, so it shows the proposed parking, and it shows two parking spaces, but it also shows some landscape planting, which is now proposed to try and soften and give planting to that frontage, to basically soften it and give it a visual appearance, so it's not so car dominated as the previous sort of full application. So in that respect, we feel that this has addressed that issue which was raised under the previous permission.
There's 2 cars, there's no landscaping there at all. Ridiculous.
Thank you, Sarah. Members of the committee, would anybody like to add anything? I've got, is it Lucy?
Afraid, yes, it's me. I'm not afraid at all. There's two things I was going to note. One is I think that there could be useful discussions about whether it's better for a property on this site, if we give the okay, should be absolutely in alignment with the existing semis, or whether it should be set back a little further, which would give the opportunity for enabling cars to be parked parallel to the road rather than directly off it, and that would give more space for landscaping at the front, and that might be better or it might be worse. But also I think that given the pictures we've just seen of the semi with the car parking in front of it and no landscaping, to say that cars parked on the front of the property with no landscaping is out of character with the area, I think we'd be laughed out of the inquiry, because it's there just adjacent to it. Now, that might be the fault of somebody selling the land which was used for the car parking and the garage, but it's the reality of what's there now, and nothing we can do about it that I'm aware of. So if there's any comments on that from the officers, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Did you want to add anything, Sarah, or have you sort of basically said everything that needed to be said?
Yeah, just to pick up on what Lucy said, the photographs that are shown on site are taken by the officer. I actually have been out this afternoon just to have a look at the site myself. And Lucy is correct. The adjacent house at number 9 has had its front garden paved over, and it's space for 2 parking spaces, as is number 7, which you can't see so much, but that also has a surface drive. So yeah, there is a pattern on the other two of sort of gardens which have been removed under permitted development rights.
Thank you. Got Councillor Ross Mcchrystal.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I empathise with the neighbours. I struggle to see any grounds, though, to object to this or to refuse this application. The point referenced car parking at the front. There'd be nothing to stop whoever's to move in there. If there was only one space and the rest was landscape, then to rip that landscaping out and to tarmac it, block pave it, and create additional car parking anyway, and would be powerless to prevent that. So I think the Speaker's argument in this situation, irrespective of what's come before previous committees, is muted, sadly. I think we're going to struggle to not approve this one.
Thank you, Ross. Councillor Paul Pegg.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'm basically going to say the same. Looking at the pictures and the fact that these vehicle access at the front on the next door property, and I think across the road as well, the 2 properties across the road from the pictures have got vehicle access for them as well. So it's going to make it virtually impossible for us to refuse it on those grounds, and I think we're going to have to accept what there is in front of us.
Thank you, Paul. Ironically, I mean, I think in most other streets in Derby, the residents would be grateful for somebody creating a couple of parking spaces outside their house rather than using the space on there. So, as I think Councillor Mcchrystal said, yes, we can have empathy or sympathy, whatever you like to call it, with people saying that it shouldn't change. But in all honesty, the application before us tonight, we have no grounds whatsoever to say no, you can't do this, because as I said, it should be a matter of sort of gratefulness or joy for residents that whoever's building the house has created 2 spaces for vehicles. But that's my view anyway, that if somebody in my street decided to have a parking space for a couple of cars on their driveway, I'd be grateful that we have one less car on the road. But we'll see. Anybody else want to say anything? No? Can we move to the vote?
Yes, Chair.
Can we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, Stephen, if you do the honours, then all those in favour, and Stephen will read out the proper phraseology.
Okay, Chair. I think we all should have the wording now. I'll go through the councillors, members of the committee, in order. Then, first of all, Councillor Anderson, please.
In favour.
Do we have the? Could somebody please just post-chair the wording in the instant?
Yes, it wasn't posted on there actually. Sarah posted it earlier on, but basically it just says, I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote, etc.
Okay, I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I would like to vote in favour.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
Councillor Carr. Give him a ring, Lucy. Move on to the next one, Stephen. Come back to Councillor Carr.
We'll come back. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Mcchrystal, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Mcchrystal. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
Thanks, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor West. And finally, yourself, Chair, before going back to...
Yeah, I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you. Do we have Councillor Carr on the...
I'm just typing in. He says that he said the screen says he isn't muted, but yet he can't be heard.
I think what we'll probably need to do, Chair, is if one of my colleagues can take him out of the meeting, we'll try and readmit him. The votes have taken then, apart from Councillor Carr, unanimous in favour, 10 votes.
Okay, thank you. That recommendation is passed. Right, moving on to the next application, which is on pages 13 to 23, 1057 London Road, change of use. And to tell us about this one is Stephen.
Chair, I don't know if I've made a suggestion at the beginning of the meeting that we might ask Alan if he might want to join our meeting, and we could take this one as the last item, and maybe he would be able to join us and speak.
I've been in touch with Alan, Lucy, and he's not going to be able to make it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Right. Well, you know, in any case, it should have been sort of through me anyway, if he wanted to. With all due respect, Lucy, I mean, individual members can't start talking to people who want to appear without notifying the chair or the officers. So it wouldn't have been acceptable, no. If he wanted to do that, he should have applied a lot earlier. But carry on, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. This is Stephen Bates, Senior Planning Officer. This is an application at 1057 London Road for a change of use to form an 11-bedroom house in multiple occupation. The site currently comprises a 2-storey semi-detached building. It's got a basement and an attic conversion, and it has previously been used as an 8-bedroom lodging establishment. That use, however, ceased in November 2019, and the building is currently undergoing refurbishment because there was a fire at the property. The existing property has got 5 double bedrooms, 3 single bedrooms, some of which are en suite, a kitchen, a laundry, and accommodated up to 13 persons. The property has benefited from an HMO licence, and that was for up to 8 persons, and that licence has been in existence from at least 2006, so quite a considerable time. The site is surrounded by residential properties. It fronts the A6. There's a caravan park to the rear, and the HMO register indicates that there are many other properties along this section of London Road that are or have been in multiple use. There are also several B&B establishments and guest houses in that area. So this application, it seeks permission to essentially regularise the previous use, but to a sui generis 11-bedroom, 11-occupant HMO. Each bedroom of the proposal would be used as a single occupancy bedroom. There's a large shared kitchen and living room on the ground floor, and there's external amenity space. And other than the provision of a roof light on the front elevation and the addition of 1 small side window to one of the attic rooms, there are no other external works proposed. Now, this application was called into committee by Councillor Alan Graves, who was concerned particularly with inadequate parking, and his further written comments have been circulated to members today. There have also been 2 local resident objections, but these are not from immediate neighbours, and they relate to parking issues and antisocial behaviour rather than the direct impact of the proposed use. Now, as members be aware, the NPPF states that the government's objective is to significantly boost the supply of homes, and that a sufficient amount and variety of land should come forward to address the needs of groups with special housing needs. And officers consider that this proposal will both regularise the variety and amount of housing delivery, and therefore be in accordance with both the NPPF and Core Strategy Policy CP6. Consequently, there are no planning policy objections to the proposal. The site is located in an accessible and sustainable location. It's fronts London Road, which has got a good public transport route. It's approximately 600 metres walking distance from Alveston District Centre, and also cycle parking is proposed to be provided in the rear garden. It is acknowledged that existing on-street parking availability is at a premium. However, in the absence of off-street parking, no resident has an entitlement to park on the highway, let alone directly outside their property. And in this instance, the Highway Authority have raised no objections, and they conclude that any additional residents will be unlikely to lead to an unacceptable impact on highway safety. The proposed conversion would provide satisfactory communal kitchen and living room and access to the rear garden. The internal layout has been amended such that all the bedrooms have full windows, and they achieve the required minimum size standard, such that no objections are now raised by the Council's Housing Standards team. The rationalisation of the internal layout will mean that all bedrooms will be single occupancy, thereby increasing the space available. It is considered that the proposed conversion will provide an appropriate standard of living accommodation. So the proposal is primarily seeking to regularise a previous unauthorised use that has been ongoing for many years. The proposed scheme would potentially reduce the number of occupiers by 2 from the 13 that were in there previously down to 11. Any judgment on the impact on the character of the area must be confined to how much extra impact this regularisation of the use would make, particularly since the character of the surrounding area includes numerous other HMOs, bed and breakfast accommodation and guest houses. So in conclusion, the proposed residential use would increase the variety and amount of housing delivery, hence the proposal is considered to be acceptable in planning policy terms. The proposal meets all the Council's housing standards regarding room sizes. A satisfactory quality of living accommodation is proposed. The proposal would not cause any overriding adverse impact on highway or neighbour amenity, and officers consider that it would be in compliance with the provisions of the NPPF and with those key core strategy policies. The recommendation is for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Stephen. As I said earlier, I haven't actually got my list of speakers, but I take it it's just Councillor Graves' letter. And would somebody like to read that out? Would you like to read that out, Stephen, or somebody? Stephen Mason. Anybody would like to read Councillor Graves' letter?
Chair, can I come in and try and help here? Paul Clark, Chief Planning Officer. It has been previously circulated, I believe, to members.
That's correct, Paul. I think we could take it as read.
Right, okay, that's fine then. In that case, if there are no other speakers, before we sort of just open it up to the committee, I mean, you all know my views on HIMOs, right? But in this instance, I'm afraid I'm at a loss to try and find something to object to, because here is something that's been there for 14 years, and at one time or most of the time had 13 residents living there, and now they want to bring it up to standard and have 11 residents living there. And as I said, I'm struggling to find anything to say against this, but I'll open it up to the committee, and I believe the first one we have is Lucy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The idea of HIMOs I always find is always sad. We get them in Littleover ward because we're close to the Royal Derby Hospital. But all my children, as they left university and were moving up in life, they went through living in a house in multiple occupation, and there definitely is a role for this sort of accommodation. It's relatively cheap. It helps people to gather the deposit they may need to get together to be able to move to somewhere better. So it has a role, and I don't think we should therefore be automatically against them. In this case, as you've said, Chair, the number of people living in that property is likely to reduce rather than increase on where we are at the moment. And we also got a condition in there to say that there should be cycle parking available in the back garden, and that will again be a positive. Can I suggest an additional condition, which is that the operator of the property should put together a travel plan, and at the very least that means that people there should be told about what the bus timetables are outside the front of the house, opportunities to talk about car sharing and things like that with whatever place of work they may be going to, information on cycle routes, and the pointing out the fact that there is actually going to be cycle parking there. It isn't conditioned at the moment. I think it should be, so I recommend that we do that as well.
Stephen, would you like to come in on that?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to include a condition such as that, and we can add that to the list that's recommended.
Thank you. Councillor Ross Mcchrystal.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to echo your thoughts and views on this proposal. Typically, this committee tends to be minded to refuse HIMOs. In this instance, there's absolutely no grounds to refuse it. Bringing it into standard and considering its location, considering the role its neighbours have in terms of the businesses that they operate, I think there's very, very few grounds to refuse this. And also, I think the committee needs to be mindful, as Lucy's pointed out, there is absolutely a role to play for HIMOs in Derby City. I always look to that we build the best accommodation available, but we do need that bridging accommodation. And I think in this case, then absolutely, this HIMO should be passed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Russ. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I'd rather see this application succeed than fail, and then somebody opens a bed and breakfast there. Councillor Joanna West.
Thanks, Chair. I'll be very quick because I think you, Councillor Mcchrystal and Councillor Kerr have said what I want to say. So that's me done. Thanks.
Jolly good, thank you. We've got Councillor Dom Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think that a lot of the time, some of the reservations that people have about houses of multiple occupancy are the reservations they have about the people who live there, and that's wrong. And we shouldn't be doing anything to support that as a committee. So I'm glad that people are of the mind that they do have a place in our housing economy. Equally, I think as a committee and as a city, we need to make sure that, as things change financially for people and as the economy starts to constrict a little, people are going to be in this situation where they need that bridging accommodation. And we need to essentially knock all of the objections, which for me seem rooted in something else, out of the park, unless there are very specific things that are being brought about by members of the planning team.
Thank you, Councillor Adamson. Well, I can assure you that under my tenure, and I believe even previously when Steve Hassel was chair of this, we've not refused an application based on the people that were going to live there. We based it on the situation of what the consequences were for the residents of that street or close or avenue or road. And, I would never ever look at any application and refuse it or even speak against it simply because I think some people, might live there that I don't like. That is not a consideration that certainly since I've been chair has been held by any committee members. And if it was, I'd be totally against it. So any application refused for HIMOs has been based on the particular application and not who might live there. Councillor Batchney.
Thank you, Chair. My main concern is that this property, I believe it had a fire in 2019 and has been basically empty ever since up until presently, or up until what they propose to do now. And by the way, I'm not bothered who lives there or anything like that. I agree with you, Chair, completely on that. But the thing is, if all these 11 people suddenly come in now, that is 11 more cars, possibly, from what's already there. And I know for a fact that this is a very, very condensed area and overpopulated with cars. Where are they going to park? What's going to happen? Now, I'm actually thinking about the other residents, the residents who are already in the area, rather than this place. So, to be honest, I don't think I'm going to vote with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Batchney. Well, we have to remember one thing, that this had been operating, for 14 years, so it's not as if it's a complete new application, but I share your concern. Anybody else would like to say anything? If not, would somebody like to move it to the vote?
Chair, Stephen Teasdale here. Are we putting the recommendation together with Councillor Kerr's additional condition?
Yes, sorry, Stephen, I should have clarified that. Yes, with the additional condition. Would somebody like to move?
Move to the vote, Chair. Councillor Pearce.
Okay, Stephen, would you like to do the honours again?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, Councillor Anderson, please.
I've listened to the debate. I'm present, I've listened to the debate, and I'm in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence, and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote against.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
We'll have to move along.
Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm my presence and I have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Mcchrystal, please.
I confirm my presence. I've listened to the presentation debate. I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Mcchrystal. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and the debate. I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
Thanks, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor West. Finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Chair. And I think we still have problems with Councillor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes! We can.
Okay, I've put my headphones on. There's obviously something wrong with the microphone on the computer. I could hear everything that's going on. I couldn't understand why. I vote in favour.
Thank you, Mike. Stephen?
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Chair, I have 10 votes in favour and 1 against.
Thank you. That recommendation is passed. So moving on to item number 3, which is land at Ricknell Road, Derby, south of the Hollybrook Inn. To tell us about this one, I believe it's Julia.
Thank you, Chair. Can you see me now? Julia Stewart, Senior Planning Officer. Initially, there are just a couple of housekeeping matters. 2 additional conditions are recommended in addition to those detailed in the officer report. 1, controlling precise details of the building's finished floor levels and any changes to land levels across the application site to ensure the height of the development can be kept to a minimum, and 1, requiring further scale drawings of the building's external elevations to be submitted and approved for clarity and to ensure we have elevations provided to a recognisable scale. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a retail store, a new vehicle access and associated car parking on land to the east of Ricknell Road, Littleover. The site is located to the south of the Hollybrook Public House, which forms part of the Heatherton Neighbourhood Centre. It also lies within an area of land identified for a wider mixed-use development under Policy AC20 of the Local Plan Part 1. Policy AC20 allocates land located on the eastern and western sides of Ricknell Road for the delivery of a minimum of 900 new homes, 2.4 hectares of employment land and a new primary school. The policy also requires the development to provide an expansion to the existing neighbourhood centre at Heatherton with the aim of upgrading it to district centre status. Policy AC20, the AC20 allocation was carried forward largely unchanged from the City of Derby Local Plan Review Policy H9. Although a supplementary planning document to guide this development was published in 2008, the SPD is not specifically mentioned within the current policy and therefore has limited weight in terms of decision making. The proposed new retail store would be positioned close to the application site's southern boundary, with its main elevation fronting a large car parking area to the north. It would be approximately 8 metres in overall height, with a footprint of approximately 55 metres by 36 metres. To facilitate the development, a new vehicle access into the site is proposed from Ricknell Road. The retail store itself would then be accessed off a new estate road which would run to the south of the proposed building, ending in a turning head. The submission also includes wider improvements to pedestrian links between the site and the existing neighbourhood centre at Hollybrook Way and the installation of a new pedestrian crossing along Ricknell Road. Members will be aware that the application is a resubmission of an earlier scheme which was refused in November 2019. Following this earlier decision, the applicant has revised the scheme to try and address the 6 reasons for refusal, which related to the following issues: comprehensiveness, linkages to the existing neighbourhood centre, design and layout, drainage and biodiversity enhancement, archaeology and arboricultural issues. The main changes to the scheme have involved the relocation and reorientation of the retail store, so its main entrance now faces and addresses the neighbourhood centre to the north, improved pedestrian linkages between the store and the existing centre along Ricknell Road, improvements to the retail store's design and sustainability credentials, including the addition of increased glazing on the building, improved cladding materials, a green wall and solar panels, increased landscaping across the site as a whole, the retention of a protected oak tree in the northeastern corner of the site, which would have been lost as part of the previous development, and the provision of an improved, more comprehensive drainage solution. In addition to the proposed physical changes, the applicant has submitted further information to address the reason for refusal relating to archaeology following the completion of further fieldwork. The submission is also accompanied by an indicative master plan for the wider area. Whilst the master plan does not form part of the current proposal, it does help to illustrate how the remaining land within the control of the applicant could be developed in the future, and provides comfort that a standalone retail store will not prejudice the wider development of the AC20 allocation. The applicant has also agreed to safeguard, through the Section 106 agreement, an area of land for employment uses falling within Use Class E and a north-south corridor which could enable the future development of a road linking up to Hollybrook Way to the north of the site. The key issue to be determined here is whether the revised submission has fully addressed the previous 6 reasons for refusal. It's considered that the submission of further supporting information in the form of a master plan, together with the safeguarding measures proposed within the Section 106 agreement, help to provide assurances that a standalone retail store application would not prejudice or preclude the delivery of policy objections across the wider site, and improve connections to the neighbourhood centre achieved through the relocation and reorientation of the retail store building and enhanced pedestrian linkages, provide improved integration with the existing centre. Whilst there are still questions over the development of the wider site, it is considered that the revisions are sufficient to overcome the first 2 reasons for refusal. The revised scheme includes significant enhancements to the design of the store, improved landscaping and the incorporation of enhanced sustainability features in order to overcome the design and visual concerns raised within reason for refusal 3. And subject to conditions, no objections have been raised by the county archaeologist, Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, the tree officer or the land drainage officer, satisfactorily addressing the reasons for refusal relating to drainage, ecology, archaeology and impact on trees, which are previous reasons for refusal 4, 5 and 6. The application has attracted a fairly large number of objections, 25 in total, and the objections raise a wide variety of issues, including concerns about the loss of trees and hedgerows, noise and disturbance, and in particular concerns about the siting of the access point along Ricknord Road. In this regard, it should be noted that no highway objections have been raised by the Highway Authority on highway safety grounds, and no objections were raised to the access point during the consideration of the earlier 2019 application. Whilst the scheme doesn't include an access point from Hollybrook Way, as indicated within the supplementary planning document, this document is purely indicative and can be attributed very limited weight. Ultimately, policy AC20 does not specifically stipulate where the parcel of land should be accessed, and the development would not preclude a future access from Hollybrook Way at a future date. It's considered that the revised scheme would provide a satisfactory form of development which has reasonably addressed the earlier reasons for refusal and would comply with relevant national and local planning policies. In line with the officer report, a recommendation is given to grant planning permission subject to completion of the associated Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We don't have any speakers on this, do we? No, if that's the case, then I'll open it to members of the committee. Anybody wish to speak on this?
There are several people. I think Dom Anderson's first, Chair.
Right. I'm just trying to get it on my screen, actually, but I've not got anybody. If you want to start, then Lucy, because I'm looking at the screen and I can't see anybody that's put forward their name to speak.
So there's me, Lucy, Mike Carr.
Yeah.
I'm happy to start.
Right. Okay.
Thanks. So I personally am quite excited about this development. In particular, I think it takes a parcel of land which unfortunately has been allowed to sort of degrade a little over the years, and it's turning it into something useful for the community. I'm glad that previous objections have been sort of sorted out, in particular the trees, which are beautiful, and I think that in terms of some of the objections that are around the entrance on Ricknell Road, that area of Ricknell Road isn't a bit that gets particularly busy, so I can't see that would be an issue either, and I can see why Highways haven't come along and said anything particular about that. In terms of it being a store, I think there is a definite need for one of those in the area, and I think that it could bring exciting opportunities for other small local businesses to want to set up around that new development once that all comes into fruition. But merely on the proposal as it is, I'm in full support of it.
Thank you, Dom. Lucy, I believe you next.
Yeah, thanks very much. And can I just prime James or whoever's doing the plans to see if he can find, I think it's called the General Access Arrangement Plan, which I want to refer to later. The both, as Julia said, there have been a lot of objections to this, but there are, as we've heard from Dom, people in the local area who actually are very supportive of it. And the supplementary planning document that people referred to, that Julia referred to earlier, certainly expected a retail store of this sort of size to be part of the development, and it's needed in the area, and the retail justification clearly makes the case for it. What people are unhappy about is the change from the supplementary planning document, which had been consulted on widely in the area, and the expectation that access to this land would be from Hollybrook Way, from the existing neighbourhood centre. And the new road coming directly off Ricknell Road seems to fly in the face of the style of other roads into the new development up and down the road, because the main two accesses into Heatherton are these large roundabouts expected to have a fair amount of traffic. This junction is very wide. It has very poor pedestrian facilities, and if it were to link into the whole of the rest of Heatherton, it would be out of kilter with the style of access into the rest of Heatherton, Highfields Farm now. And that is what people are most concerned about. Also because it goes between the trees, and the row of three mature oak trees are a fairly iconic aspect of the road along there, and people are loath to cause them any damage. And the tree officer has made quite a lot of concerns about the trees and the care of them. So bearing that in mind, and hopefully, probably James has put this plan up. I want to draw people's attention to three things initially. We can see the positions there of the three trees along the Ricknell Road frontage, and as well as the tree itself, we've got marked there an indicative, and the tree report indicates this indicative root protection area, and the road drives through the root protection area of the two better specimens of trees along there. And it's not so much, talking to the tree officer, and you can probably explain this, that it's not so much the vehicles going on it, but it's this disturbance that is caused by digging through and putting something there. It's the disruption that the trees will feel by having construction work going on so close to them. The other thing that you'll note here is the width of this road, a 7.3 metre wide access. Now, the main road further up here, traditional road for this area, Havenbolt Lane, is just over 6 metres wide. I checked with a highways inspector and he went and measured it for me. It was actually 6.3 metres wide. 7.3 metres, I'm told, is a standard industrial road. The standard residential road would be 5.5 metres wide. So this is significantly bigger than a standard residential road. Yes, it's got to have heavy goods vehicles, articulated lorries going along it once, maybe twice a day to deliver to the store. But it doesn't need to be as wide as 7.3, because all it's doing is going to a store, and people don't want this to be a main access into the whole of the estate. so it doesn't need to have that purpose. If we reduce the width, then we reduce the amount of damage to the root areas of those trees. They would get an extra ½ metre at least of undamaged ground around their feet. And that will help preserve those trees for the future. And I'd like to hear from the tree officer about that as well. The second issue we've got here is how wide the splay is coming in off Ricknald Road. It's got labelled on the same on this drawing, a 10-metre curb radii. Now, that has several effects. One, it means that that radius cuts much closer to the trees. So if we can make that radius smaller, we do less damage again to the trees. If you're a pedestrian walking across the road and not wanting to visit Aldi, but are wanting to go along the road, maybe to the bus stop, which is just beyond the trees, or come off the bus stop just beyond the come off the bus just beyond the trees, you've got a really wide area to cross, or you're going to need to go back 10 metres before you get to the standard width of that road. If we make that curve smaller and tighter, then we don't have to have so much diversion. It isn't as wide. It doesn't damage the trees as much. And if you look at the bottom of the plan, you'll see that the radius to get those articulated lorries into the tight area of the and manoeuvre to be able to get into the store itself requires only a 6-metre curb radius. So why do we need a really wide, pedestrian unfriendly 10-metre curb radius onto Ricknald Road and an extra wide road to get people to get these lorries to the store when there's only going to be a couple of them a day, probably late at night, first thing in the morning, when the car park is going to be fairly empty, which is why they'll want to do the delivery at those times. So I have a first recommendation to us that we amend what we have in front of us from the officer in terms of the first set of recommendations, which presume that this plan is what we want to build. And I want to take the reference to that plan, which has got a very long number. It's just out of sight at the bottom of the screen where I am. And say we don't want to approve that one. We want to, and I've got some draft wording here to say that we want to replace it with to reach agreement on a plan for the road access to include a carriageway of no more than 6.5 metres with 2-metre footways and with 6-metre radii to join Ricknald Road. And this would reduce the impact of the road on the protected trees, encourage slower manoeuvres off the main road and reduce visual intrusion of the road. It'll make it safer for pedestrians, for cyclists, for the trees, and we will still get access into the store. Now, I note that Paul Clark is wanting to say something.
I was just about to say, Lucy, are you nearly done?
Well, would you like to pick up this issue? I've got 1 or 2 more things I wanted to say, but do you want to pick this one up first?
Well, we can pick this, but may I remind you that the reason that we refused this application, way back last year, they have been addressed. Now, I'm sure Paul and Stephen Teasdale would tell us, but we can't keep making new rules up as we go. We can't keep finding new reasons to refuse. Let Paul.
Chair, if
you just bear with me a minute, Lucy, rather than to get all this confusion done. Let Paul come back onto what you've just said, and then we can have separate, answers.
I'll come back on the other points in a bit.
Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Paul Clark, Chief Planning Officer. Councillor Kerr and I had a discussion about this earlier before the meeting, and I searched through my emails. Paul Chamberlain would have been here tonight, but he is ill tonight. We'd asked this very question of Paul, and he came back and said the size of the junction radii is not any way related to speed. That was one of the concerns. And he pointed out to me that the size of the radii are determined by the largest vehicle likely to be turning into or out of the side road and the swept path created by that vehicle. So that's the vehicle not overhanging or driving up over the pavement. The proposed Aldi will be visited by articulated vehicles. Also, the local plan allocates the parts of the site for industrial uses, and consequently a 7.3 metre wide road and a 10 metre radii are appropriate. Now, not content with that, I went to the applicant this evening, and the applicant's agent has got a comment from his highway consultants who've been in touch talking with our highway guys to overcome the previous reasons for refusal, and their comment is that a 7.3 metre width for the road has been their proposal from day one. There has been no objection on highway grounds last time, all this to the 7.3. There was no reason for refusal on highway grounds, referring to overly wide estate roads. So they feel this is a new issue, subject to the previous discussions and risks involved from a Derby City Council perspective. The applicants have agreed to safeguard the land served off the estate road for employment purposes. So a 7.3 metre wide road would be most suited to make that land attractive for marketing purposes and to maximise potential to deliver employment B1 uses on that land. So we've got the Highway Authority through Paul Chamberlain saying we need the 7.3 metre width, and even if you reduced the width down to less than 7.3, you'd still have that curb radii with Ricknell Road, because it needs to be that have that radii to follow the swept path analysis that's been done with the application, so that articulated vehicles don't mount the pavement. Where they turn into the store off the road, that is when delivery vehicles would be managed by their own operatives on site, and they have more control than the free flow of traffic onto Ricknell Road. So we have highway colleagues here, but I think from what I've heard, both the applicant's highway engineers and our own highway authority is saying it's 7.3, it needs to be that, it needs the curb radii. And of course, as you said, Chair, it wasn't a reason for refusal in the last time, so it really cannot be a point of contention this time, because implicitly it's been accepted in the original scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, in all the time that I've been on this committee, this is probably the first time ever I heard a councillor asking for a turning to be narrowed. Normally we ask for it to be widened, and in this case, if some of you have seen when lorries turn into, I mean, we have one on Normanton Road with Lidl and Aldi, and you see some of these lorries turning in, and almost inevitably they tend to mount the curb with their rear wheels. So this is a developer that's actually saying, yes, okay, we'll have 7.3, and the highways agree with it. And I'm sorry, Lucy, but in this case, I don't agree with what you're saying, and I think a far wider, it's better to have a wider entrance and egress than to have a narrow one. And let's see these lorries mount curbs and possibly when they're going in and out, there should be a bit of gap in between them going in and out as well, rather than door mirror to door mirror. So I don't follow your logic at all in asking for a reduction in that. But I will remind you again, we can't find new reasons to refuse this, because the reasons we gave last time are the ones they have addressed. And I'm sure Stephen Teal will tell you that, no, if we were to do that, we would seem to be looking to be unreasonable.
Chair, I was not suggesting we refuse it. What I was suggesting is that we look at one of the drawings and look to see if we can negotiate changes to it.
No, it's not acceptable.
Chair, no, we can ask to negotiate changes.
Yeah, but this is a change that we didn't ask for last time, and as Paul said to you, there is no objection from highways. There wasn't an objection on this last time, so it's a new condition, and we can't do that.
I hear you, but it doesn't stop us talking to them and asking.
Right.
Because the existing Ricknell Road, Chair, is wide. It's about 9 metres wide. And one of the other things that we as local councillors have been looking to do is to have a cycle lane down both sides of that road. Now, the effect of putting a probably 1.5 metre wide cycle lane, it could be 1.8 metre, it could be 2 metres wide, that cycle lane down the edge of the road, is to effectively move the curb line from where the constructed curb is at the moment. No,
it's
Chair, may I
turning
finish,
into there.
please?
It's
Exactly, Chair.
there.
It's exactly, Chair. But the starting point for your radius moves away by the width of the cycle lane.
Lucy, I've given you so much time on this, right? But I'm afraid I'll have to let somebody else come in.
Chair,
because,
this is a
you know,
really
you're
important
asking for new
application.
conditions.
No, I'm not. I'm asking to amend the conditions, to go back and negotiate. I'm not saying that it's got to change. I'm saying that we need to look at it for the sake of the trees.
If you're asking for us to go back and amend, that means we're asking for change. We can't just go there and say we're not asking for anything. We've just come to have a chat, right? So if you're asking for an officer to go back to them, that means you want them to amend the plans, and they can quite rightly say no.
Chair, we often talk to people to finalise many aspects of planning applications, whether it's the materials to be used, whether it's the boundary details. There are numerous things we go back and talk to applicants about before they finally agree, the officers finally agree the recommendations that we have made here at the committee. That is what I'm asking to do.
Can somebody give Councillor Kerr some legal advice as to what we can and can't do on this issue? Because, I've tried my best. I've said that we can't find new conditions. So Stephen Teasdale or Paul, somebody come in.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. It's Stephen Teasdale, legal advisor here. I think Paul has sort of basically explained the position. In terms of, we're not here really to redesign the scheme. The plans, the applicants put the plans in. They're acceptable in terms of highway issues. And there's no issue that in terms of the trees that they are causing a problem. So in terms of acceptability, and as Paul said, the applicant has already responded to a degree on that. So I think you really need to determine the matter as it's being put in. Now, perhaps further discussions could be had with the applicant if they are willing. Well, once you've granted it, they can subsequently make an amendment if they feel that's desirable. But that is over to them. I think the benefits that Councillor Kerr is looking for are not really related to the development themselves. And okay, they may be desirable, but they are not strictly related to the development, and we cannot require them. And I think it's only fair for the applicant to have their submissions and their plans determined as they've submitted, particularly if they are acceptable in all respects in terms of highways and trees. I think that's the bottom line. Now, it doesn't stop, as I say, that we can go back and put it to them that there might be benefit to make alterations, but that is for the applicant to determine. I think they are entitled to have their application determined tonight on the basis of the submissions.
Thank you, Paul. Stephen and Paul. As far as I'm concerned, that precisely what you've said are my thoughts along the line. If the applicants, are willing to listen to a fine, right? But it's not something that we can, go back and even sort of tell them, really. All we can say is that will you look at this, and they probably rightly say no. And I don't actually see the benefit in narrowing the entrance or egress of it anyway, but maybe Julia and Paul can have a chat with them and have a chat with the developers, see if there's any benefit, or when Paul Chamberlain comes back, and have a word with him as well. But I certainly don't see any benefit in narrowing that anyway. We have Councillor Ross Mcchrystal next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, I empathise with the folks that are going to be living opposite this store, but we also have to be mindful of what's been considered in the local plan. Does the local plan need to be revisited? Probably yes, but that's not for the committee to decide for this evening. Very concerned about some of the comments regarding this application. I think it has to be seen, and very clearly seen, that the committee plays with a straight bat. that planning applications are judged on what is submitted here and now. The planning process and our planning team and planning officers afford every possibility for councillors and for members to input during the submission process and to make suggestions and recommendations and back the corner or not of local residents. So we have to absolutely judge on what's based and put in front of us this evening. Now, in terms of amenity and need and necessity, absolutely, there's a need for this store. We've refused it once, they've come back, they've addressed the concerns that the Plan Control Committee had on the previous application, addressed those satisfactorily. There's absolutely no reason to refuse this application as it stands this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Steve Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. You was muted then. I couldn't hear a word you were saying.
Yes.
Hang on, put my camera on. Right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think I was chair when this last came to committee, and I was one of those who refused it. But it appears they have addressed a lot of the issues that were present at the time, and I think they've gone a long way to address that. And I think it, you know, the benefits far outweigh any kind of negatives here. There's lots of jobs, lots of money being put into the area with this sort of thing. I think it should be celebrated. And really, as for Lucy, you're very frustrating in that you've got direct access to all the council officers prior to these meetings. You've got ample chance to talk these through with officers prior to the meetings rather than bring them out here and kind of monopolise people's time. To be fair, you can address them prior, but that's just a comment from me. But no, Chair, I think it's a good application. It's never ideal, but I will be voting for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Anderson, you made a comment there. I don't know who you're talking to, whether it's Lucy, me, Paul, or Stephen. Did you want to say anything, Paul, or was this just a message to Lucy asking if this application is okay as it stands?
Thank you, Chair. It was really just me to try and focus back again that we have this application before us. They've overcome the 6 reasons for refusal last time, and we now need to decide, I think councillors have mentioned it before, is this application as it stands, is this acceptable now or not? I think you've got Councillor Carr to speak as well, Chair.
Okay, right. Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. It's only the 4th time I've asked to speak. I was originally in front of Councillor Mcchrystal, but never mind. Basically, picking up Councillor Hassell's point, he doesn't live there. The people who live around there are absolutely incandescent with rage that they're not stuck to the original terms of the SPD, which would have seen the access coming in from Hollybrook Way. Now, I understand we can't object to it on access grounds. I would like to make the point that Lucy Kerr was not attempting to get it refused, simply trying to get it amended in an acceptable way. And as for you, Chair, saying that you don't mind running across 25 metres of road, because that's what it'll work out when you're a pedestrian on that pavement, with those radii and the road width. It's a long way to run when you're old and going to the bus stop and there's a lorry waiting to turn in. So while I accept that we're going to have to go with this not very good amendments to the application. Oh, I've got a question for the officers. I've read somewhere, I apologise for this, I can't find it anywhere in the report now, something about the way that they will be dealing with the route protection areas may well render this road unadoptable by the City Council. So I'd like an officer to comment on that. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may, Paul Clark, Chief Planning Officer, on that point, in In the absence again of Paul Chamberlain, I understand that currently the method of construction for the access road, where it adjoins, passes through the trees and their roots, is not to an adoptable standard, but could be. Mcchrystal is here if he might wish to elaborate more.
Christopher?
Thank you, Chair. Chris Thorley, Traffic and Transportation Engineer. There's two issues with the adoption of the road. The first one is that because it's purely serving a supermarket, there's no, as we call it, public utility to the council to adopt the road, maintain it at the public expense, because effectively it's serving one particular use. And then the second one is about the proposed construction method because of the protection of the trees. We have standards of construction which we automatically accept. This is not a standard of construction which we readily accept. We've never seen it in Derby. I'm not aware of anywhere else that it's been seen. The problem is if this then goes in, the council then becomes, if we do adopt the road, the council then becomes responsible to maintain it should there start to be a failure, should the trees start to die because of it, for instance, because it's the highway structure that's doing it. So we would at the moment resist adopting that road such that it remains a private drive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris.
Chair, if I can come back and clarify just on that one point.
Yes, Paul.
Whether or not it's adopted is not a planning matter.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's nobody else, well, I certainly don't have anybody else, and I'm sorry, Mike, I'll apologize to you because my sort of speaker list is going up in notches actually for some reason. I don't know whether it's to do with my broadband or what, but apologies for making you wait.
Apology accepted. Apology accepted, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Would somebody like to move this?
Chair.
I'll move to the vote, Chair.
Chair, I said when I spoke earlier, I explained that I had several things I wanted to raise, and the first one was the transport.
Right, Lucy, well, very, very quickly, please, because you've had about 15 minutes on this already. So very quickly, only the points that are applicable. Only the points that are applicable to tonight's application.
I think they all are, Chair. And for the people who...
No, with due respect, they're not. We're addressing the application that was refused and the points have been addressed.
Chair, with respect, the people who have spent a lot more than 15 minutes writing detailed letters of objection to this application would think that we should be spending more than 15 minutes talking about it.
I'm fully sympathetic of that, Lucy, but those people don't know the rules of the planning committee, and you, as somebody who's been on that even before I was, know that we can't be bringing up new points each time the same application comes, before us. So it's unfair of you to make these comments, knowing fully well, the parameters that we work in.
Yes, our officers talk to applicants and make changes. One of which, Chair, we have here a landscaping scheme. One of the things that people have raised as a concern has been the loss of hedgerows. And we are creating a new road that has two sides to it, and it's very traditional form to have hedgerows alongside roads. The other advantage of putting a hedgerow as a boundary is that it doesn't have any footings which might further damage the trees and the tree roots. So I don't think we can condition that, but I think it's an important aspect that both our officers, when they're negotiating what that landscaping scheme could include, that it might be a native species hedge, predominantly hawthorn, and to be maintained as such as part of the landscaping scheme. Chair, if you can remember the plan, Chair, that we looked at earlier, we're showing the access road and the routes on site. You'll see that if you have walked from the bus stop, which is just out of town from that new access road, towards the towards the entrance where the main entrance for vehicles, there is no route on site for pedestrians to walk from that access point from the driveway through to reach the front of the building. And it's a route that it would be a natural route for people coming from the bus stop to use and potentially others. So I just want to see if we can condition a route on site that will enable people to be able to walk safely from that point on the public footway to the front of the store with the relevant drop curbs and width and so on. There's also the route that marked here, which is the proposed pedestrian access, which is shown better actually on the other plan and actually goes all the way through the site. And I very much welcome that access going through the site with the hope that it will continue further on. But the expectation in due course is that this won't just be a pedestrian route, but it will also be a route for cyclists, including the crossing on Ricknall Road, which is also a very positive benefit compared to last year's application. So I would hope that we can look at that pedestrian route and see if we can make it wide enough to be safely used also by cyclists, because I think it will likely be used by cyclists coming from that crossing point, even if it's only cyclists, younger cyclists with parents. We've talked about the road potentially not being adoptable. If that road is not going to be to adoptable standards, it would be quite difficult for it then to be an access road through to the rest of this part of the AC20 application site. And I would like, and I'm probably told that we can't, to have that route defined that it will not go any further than just provide access to this store and potentially the application that we've also got coming in on the other side. But I just wanted to mention that now because I think it's important to local people. And finally, this is something which is of note. We sometimes these days we get articulated lorries coming along Havenbrought Lane from Tesco's, and it causes a certain amount of disturbance because of their size and noise, and people tell us as local councillors about it. It would be very nice if we could condition to say that access to and from this site for the HGV delivery vehicles should be only coming from the A38. Again, I'm not sure that we can actually condition that, but I think it's something that would be much appreciated by local people. And sorry, there's one other point that I've remembered. We've got a condition here about cycle parking. We had a condition about cycle parking for the Aldi store at by the hospital on Utoxeter New Road. In that case, there was even a drawing and a picture showing Sheffield stands to be installed as part of that development. It wasn't installed as Sheffield stands, but people very often try to use the inferior construction of cycle parking there as Sheffield stands. And I just want to make sure that in this case, we get the cycle parking that is Sheffield stands and is undercover. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm not sure, you say no, we can ask for this, but probably get turned down. So I don't know why you want to ask them. But certainly if there's lorries coming down Havenbrought Avenue at the moment, or lane, then, we can't say, well, you can't come to this particular store. You'll have to come from the A38. But then again, I might be wrong. Paul, would you like to add anything to this, or shall we just move to the vote?
I'd like you to move to the vote. However, can I come back and just say on the landscaping, yes, point noted, there's a landscaping condition suggested where we can require seek to secure hedgerows along the road. The conditioning the route that it doesn't go anywhere else, I can't really stop that. It's shown as it is, terminating in a hammerhead at the moment. Clearly we want it to serve the employment land further afield. Ideally,
no, we don't.
Well, ideally there's a north-south link between the doctor's surgery and the church, which again currently is outside of the applicant's control, but we would ideally link everything together, best will in the world. But at the moment I can't condition that this access road doesn't go anywhere else. It is what it is. It's an access road to this site as shown in red on the application. In terms of, you're right, Chair, in terms of lorry movements on the public highway, I can't. Yeah, you can condition it. I don't see how you can enforce it, or whether the condition is actually reasonable. It's very difficult to stop lorries using the public highway and how they access the site. or how they get to the site. However, we are suggesting, and environmental health colleagues have raised concerns about the hours of delivery times. So delivery vehicles will be only accessing this site during certain hours, as referred to in the Environmental Health Officer's comments. I think those, Chair, without wishing to tread on Julia's toes, are the points I wanted to raise. Thank you.
Chair, we've got the point of access through the site for pedestrians. We're supposed to have a good pedestrian and cyclist access statement and credentials for this sort of development because that is sustainable travel. We haven't got a good route through the site. Is that something that we can add a condition for?
For the last time, Paul.
Chair, on one of the plans that James was showing us, there is a pedestrian footpath that comes along the 7.3 metre wide road, turns the corner. Yes, pedestrians have to cross the, I think it's the service yard entrance, and then they join the side of the store. There's a pedestrian way. Thank you, James. So they come down the pavement. I can't show you with an arrow. They turn into the site. They cross the delivery service yard entrance, and then where those parking spaces are going north, that's it. Thank you. That's the pedestrian link that takes you through the front of the store. It might be that there is a pedestrian crossing marked on the road across the entranceway to the service yard, like there's pedestrian crossings shown. Thank you, James. There's pedestrian crossings marked elsewhere, which then indicates a priority for pedestrians linking through the store and through the site, and that is something that we can condition.
Chair, that would be very helpful because the equivalent point at the New Toxteth New Road site, there aren't even drop curbs for that equivalent crossing point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul. I agree with that, actually. We must make sure that there's a proper sort of pedestrian crossing for them in terms of the lane road being marked. So can we just get rid of this? That's it, thank you. Right. Would somebody now like to move this to the vote?
Move to the vote, Chair.
Seconder?
Yeah, me, Councillor Hassel.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Stephen, would you like to do the honours?
Chair, can I just clarify that is with the additional two conditions that Julia mentioned at the beginning, and also the additional condition that by Lucy in terms of the pedestrian.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah, with those in mind, are we still okay to move this?
Okay, Chair. I'll go through the members now.
Okay.
Councillor Anderson, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
Councillor Kerr.
Apologies. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I'm going to abstain because this is better than the previous application, but I'm not supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, please.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote against.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the recommendation.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I can confirm my presence and I have listened to the debate and the presentation, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Mcchrystal, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation debate. I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Mcchrystal. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the recommendations.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and I was listening to the presentation and the debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor West. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, I can confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Chair. So that's 9 in favour, 1 against and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. That's the recommendation is carried. Moving on to the next item, which is pages 77 to 87, land at Ricknell Road, is the installation of service water drainage infrastructure. And to tell us about this is Julie again.
Thank you, Chair. Julia Stewart, Senior Planning Officer. Initially, it's just one housekeeping matter. An additional condition is recommended to require the approval of an archaeological written scheme of investigation in line with the late comments received from the county archaeologist, which were circulated to members. The application seeks planning permission for the installation of a surface water drainage infrastructure, including an attenuation basin, and it's proposed to serve the new retail store as proposed to the west of the site and considered under the previous application. It would be located to the northeast of the proposed retail store. The drainage scheme would offer an opportunity to achieve a sustainable drainage solution for the store, its access road and car parking, together with a potential drainage solution for future developments within the wider AC20 allocation area. The application also provides an opportunity to achieve further biodiversity gain across the site through additional planting and landscaping, which can be controlled through condition. One letter of comment has been received from the adjacent church on Hollybrook Way, which raises concerns about potential safety risks if the drainage pond is accessed by children. And to address this, we've recommended a community safety condition that would control details of any fencing or security measures. No objections have been raised by the tree officer or land drainage colleagues, and in line with the officer report, it's recommended that planning permission is granted subject to conditions. You have no speakers on this application, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. If you could just get rid of the diagram for us. Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on this? Sorry, have we got Lucy?
I'm afraid so, Chair. Well, I'm not afraid at all, actually. It's an interesting comment from the church there, because this is the area that is the most obvious part of the expansion of the Heatherton shopping area, to be able to link the existing shopping area with the Aldi that people have just approved. And therefore, this balancing area is going to become a feature in that sort of very public facing part of the whole development. And I therefore just wondered whether we have any advice on, in terms of fencing it off, in terms of safety. Is it something we can actually enable it to be used in some way as safe, publicly accessible space, as the balancing pond, for example, at the entrance to the Manor Kingsway site is part of the open space, or the balancing pond off Pendleside Way. We've got lots of balancing areas which are active public spaces. Is there any reason why this can't be an active public space? And if so, is there anything we should be conditioning about that?
Julia?
Thank you, Chair. I think we're basically going to have a look as and when the developments come forward, whether this area can be used as potential public open space. I'm sure the developers would be keen on that if they can double up the area to be used as a drainage solution and public open space. And I appreciate what you're saying. If it is the entrance into the wider site, we want to ensure it's an attractive visual feature, which is why we've recommended conditions relating to landscaping within the application. So I think it's something we would have to look at as and when future developments come along to ensure we've got an attractive feature at the entrance to, well, hopefully the entrance into the site.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Councillor Mcchrystal.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So whether we decide this is going to be open public space or not, the chances are it will be open public space because people will go there, and unless there's some pretty harsh fencing surrounding it. I just really want assurance from officers. I've visited, and just to explain, just to backtrack, I've visited a few of these sites over the last few days that surround my ward. And some of the sites are across the boundary in South Derbyshire, and to be quite honest, I was appalled by the level of safety surrounding these sites, with steps going down into the reservoir. The drains were only, which were perfect child size, were only partially covered and weren't welded to the edges. Massive safety issues. So what I'm really looking for is some assurance from our officers that should this be approved, that we've got the capability and capacity to keep on inspecting these sites, because they are serious safety concerns, particularly in residential areas, whether it's public open space or not. These are going to be a magnet for our young people, sadly. So I need some assurances from council officers that these sites will have continued inspection for safety purposes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ross. Julia?
Thank you, Chair. Well, there is a general community safety condition on that there, so it could include things like future maintenance responsibility and monitoring of the site. So I'm sure we could word something into that condition to cover that.
Okay, thank you. If there's nobody else, would somebody like to move this?
I'll move, Chair.
Sorry. Seconder?
I'll second it then.
I'll second it.
Okay, Stephen, if you'd like to go through the procedure again.
Thank you, Chair. Will do. I believe Councillor Anderson has now left the meeting.
Yes, he said goodbye, and I've reciprocated.
Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence, and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the debate and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
I confirm my presence and I have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you. In favour, Councillor Carr. Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the application. Over.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Nawaz, please.
Confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Mcchrystal, please.
I confirm my presence. I've listened to the presentation, debate. I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Mcchrystal. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officers' recommendations.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and the debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
Joanna?
Oh, Joanna.
It didn't click. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor West. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of it.
In favour. Thank you, Chair. So that's 10 votes in favour, unanimous.
Thank you, Stephen. That recommendation is carried. The last, but no means least, application to be considered tonight, pages 88 to 95, 27 Fairborn Drive it is, I believe, and Sarah's going to tell us about this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sarah Claxton, Development Control Team Leader. Yeah, there's a few housekeeping items for this one. We've had one additional objection which has been circulated already, which raises concerns about the content of the committee report. I also just need to clarify for members as a correction to the representations section of the report. Which actually should say we've had 5 objections in total to the tree works and 1 supporting comment, which were all received during the life of the application. Objections to the works being carried out on the grounds of impact on the open space and amenity, and the supporting comment was that the trees need arboricultural management. In terms of the main item, it's an application for TPO consent to do works to various trees which are on and overhanging the north and eastern side boundaries of 27 Fairbourne Drive in Mickletown. The site's been developed in recent years with erection of a new dwelling, which I understand is now occupied by the applicant. There have been a number of applications for the development which have resulted in works to some of the trees around the site, unauthorised works on site, and the tree officer has visited the site on more than one occasion to discuss tree works with the applicant. The timeline for these discussions is set out in section 7 of your report, and the tree officer, Andrew Sherville, is in attendance, so he can respond to any queries on this application. The proposed works have been amended during the life of the application through discussions with the tree officer, and they're set out in Appendix 1 after the report. And in detail, they include pruning of 17 trees and felling of 1 cherry tree. And the ash trees are noted to be suffering from ash dieback, which has reduced their overall life expectancy. The council tree officer is satisfied that the proposed tree works are reasonable for the amenities of the adjacent dwelling and to safeguard the health of the tree in the long term. And therefore he recommends consent to be granted for the works to the trees subject to the recommended conditions. And you have Councillor Holmes waiting to speak. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I say sorry to you, Matthew? Right, I didn't have my speakers list. Otherwise, I would have probably brought this in, before the LD applications, right? So apologies for that. But you have your 3 minutes, and I might even allow you an extra.
No, thank you, Chair. It takes me back. I do miss being on the planning committee. I would say that I'm not going to repeat Mr. Richards' submission, because I think that was very detailed amongst the various submissions that have been received on this application, and his areas of challenge and concern I think need to be closely looked at and considered by the committee, and seek clarification from officers on what's in that. But I would say I would ask committee to fully consider what is reasonable in regards to reduction or removal. And that each proposal in the application can absolutely be justified in regard to concerns in terms of the council's own tree management policy. So I'd just like to point out from that policy in regards to pruning and cutting back, it should only be justified if causing a nuisance, such as touching or damaging buildings, trees are dead or in such poor condition to be a danger to the public, or proven to be causing significant structural damage, or the benefit is so limited by where it is that the inconvenience outweighs all arguments in favour of keeping the trees. And in relation to the to work, pruning, whatever, it would not normally be considered to carry out works where a tree is perceived to be too large, or to prune overhanging branches that are not causing a actionable nuisance, or are causing shading, a loss of light, causing seasonal nuisance, causing obstruction of views, or actually benefiting an individual even if they're willing to pay for the work, or causing disruption to pavement, curbs, gardens, pathways, walls, because engineering solutions can be found. So all of these areas, Chair and committee, where works would not normally be agreed by the council, putting aside actually the high level of scrutiny that a TPO puts in place. So I would ask respectfully that committee members consider each of the requested actions in the application, and really apply the council policies and seek compromise by condition in regards to what is acceptable and what isn't in this case, and be mindful of our own tree policy, but also the TPOs and all the other things that need to be taken in consideration. For example, there's proposals for the ash tree and removal of other trees. I really don't think those aspects are acceptable in my opinion, and I think that the committee really does need to take heed of everything that's in this application and challenge officers to explain whether it's fully justified or whether there can be a compromise and conditions placed. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. As always, we will challenge the officers to see if they're right, and it's not just for this application but for all applications, but certainly we'll try and clarify as much as possible for you. Did you want to come back on this, Sarah, or is it Chris?
No, it's. I'm just going to ask Andy Sherville to sort of make some comment on it, because he is the tree expert. But I just want to refer to 7.3 of his report, where he says that trees do not need to be dead or dangerous to justify tree works. Arboriculture can be described as management of trees in the urban environment. Reasons for pruning are many, which include pruning to provide canopy clearance to buildings, structures, maintaining sight lines, providing adequate clearance to the highway, to name but a few. But I say Andy Sherville is the tree expert within the council, so I think he's well aware of council policy. So you may want to ask him for his thoughts on the justification.
Are you with us, Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am.
Carry on.
Right. Initially the schedule of works was quite poor, so I did meet with the applicant, and we sort of had a compromise of what works were appropriate and reasonable. I don't think it's fair citing the council's tree management policy, because that is designed to manage our own trees and our limited budget for managing those trees. So it's not really a direct correspondence to TPO trees and other private trees. Yeah. So I suppose really it's is what you would like to know. Certainly the recommendations that I have made, I think are reasonable to allow.
Right. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Andrew. I hope that clarifies a little bit for you, Matthew. Anybody else? No? Would somebody like to... Oh, hang on. Paul's just...
about Chair.
Yeah.
Chair, I have a specific question, please.
Okay then, Lucy.
This follows from the objection from Mr. Richards, which refers to an additional window that went into the roof as part of permitted development. And I wondered whether any of the requests for pruning of the trees are directly related to that new window.
Sarah, do you know anything about it?
I'm going to defer to my tree colleague Andrew Sherville for that one. I think he might...
Go on then, Andrew. Shed some light on the matter.
Thank you, Chair. I believe the window isn't near where the tree pruning is happening, so I don't think it's a direct. The proposed pruning is not a direct result of the window that's been approved.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Before somebody else comes up with a question, would somebody like to move this?
Move, Chair.
Seconder?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Stephen, if you do the honours again.
Thank you, Chair, will do. Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence, and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the officer recommendation.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I can confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate. In favour.
And you vote in favour. Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Mcchrystal, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Mcchrystal. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and the debate and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
Thanks, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor West. And finally yourself, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
Thank you, Chair. In favour. That's unanimous in favour, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. That recommendation is passed. Before we go on to the last item, I believe Paul Clark wants to come in for a brief.
I'll try to be brief, Chair. Paul Clark, Chief Planning Officer. All I'd like to say is for members of the public watching out there, letters submitted in lieu of public speaking, be they objectors, supporters, letters from the applicants and or agents, are submitted to us by a specific deadline, and members have all had those circulated, sent out to them. So Nigel Scollin receives them, sends them out to all members. So we might have been seen to have glossed over some issues tonight and not taken things into account. Certainly members have had the information, have had all your letters of objection and support where necessary to make the informed decisions that they have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I couldn't agree with you more in that sense. I hope members of the public are reassured that we do look at everything they sent us. Unfortunately, sometimes it may appear that we're overlooking them, when in actual fact the only thing we're doing is to sort of read them and not bring them to the forefront here, because they're not material considerations in terms of planning. But you can all rest assured that we do read and look at everything that you send to us, and officers forward them to us as well. I mean, some of you send it direct to committee members, but those that send it to the officers do pass it on to each and every committee member. So, right, the final item then is probably the most exciting time of the evening: potential site visits.
Thank you, Chair. You're really building it up there for me.
Oh, well, I'm trying.
We've only got 2 items, majors, that have come in the last since last committee. One is a full application for a new food store at the Talbot Street, Uttoxeter Road junction, which I think members might be familiar with, because we have had 2 previous applications for a food store on this site. This is a new scheme, which I believe is for a Lidl store. So I think you can see it from the highway.
I guess it doesn't matter what sort of name changes, but the location is still there. We've had site visits before, and if anybody wants to go there, they can look at it from any angle. Actually, it could be at Curzon Street or Lara Croft Way or Stafford Street or Uttoxeter Road. You can all see it from that angle. So.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take it there's no interest. The second one is only a variation of condition for south of Victory Road, Victory Park, Sinfin, which is industrial unit. So amending windows and doors to one of the units. And that's it.
Well, Frank isn't here, so I don't think anybody else will go.
So that's all the majors for tonight, Chair.
Right, okay. Well, all that remains for me to say is thank you very much, good night, and have a safe, well, I was going to say safe journey home, but we're all at home anyway, so have a nice evening.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night all.
Good night.